And welcome to this week's edition of Making Sense. I'm Gareth Edwards. The number of vehicle recalls in South Africa, not just this year, but over the past few years, is becoming incredibly worrying. Most recently, we saw that with the Ford Rangers and the Ford Everests from the year 2017 up to the year 2020. We're going to be unpacking some of the big names that have been impacted, what this impact actually means for you as motorists as well. But a lot of people are beginning to ask, why are we seeing more and more of these vehicle recalls? Is it a safety feature that is a good thing for motorists when we see these recalls happening instead of waiting for something to go wrong? But why are they even happening in the first place? What could be leading to this, and what should you be making of this? It's such a pleasure. I speak to her on ENCA regularly via Zoom, but now for this particular edition of Making Sense, very, very glad, very excited. Marcia Mayaba has come in to join us on the show, motoring industry expert, close to 3 decades. I dare not age you. I'm not going to age you. Lovely to have you on the podcast. For everyone watching, set the scene. Who are you in this industry? You've been around so long.
Oh, Gareth, thank you so much. Greetings to you and the viewers of the ENCA podcast, Making Sense of Automotive Recall Campaigns. As you've said, I'll use my 3 names, Marcia Veronica Mayaba. And I'm 52 years old, so I might as well put it out there.
You don't look it. You don't look it.
Thank you. 3 decades in automotive industry, and I've worked across all the value chains of automotive. I've worked for OEMs, I worked for retail, I've worked for the data side of automotive. So I'm quite au fait with the automotive industry. I work for fleet management and rental. And up until now, I started the Marcia Mayaba Foundation, which focuses on the young girl child and women in automotive, which I know we'll probably touch on a bit later.
I do want to touch on that before we wrap up today's show. So when you look at the number of vehicles that have been recalled, big brands, I mean, you can talk about the brands if you want to, but you know the OEM side. How worried are you that we're seeing what appears to me to be a sudden increase in vehicle recalls? How worried are we about this?
So Gareth, we're human, right? And recall campaigns are not unique to any particular brand. It's across all brands, including the recent influx of the Chinese brands, right? So from where I'm sitting, we're human. We would worry. But I think what's important is to understand what a recall campaign is. We adhere to international global standards when it comes to safety. So when a vehicle moves from a production line or being manufactured, it's safe to hit the showroom floor. So it's past the minimum standards, right? When we talk about recalls, we're saying an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, has identified an issue on the vehicle, specifically produced over a period of time, with a specific model and derivative, and the issue has been identified and it now needs to be remedied and fixed. So I wouldn't use the word worry because we are human, but I'd certainly caution panic, and I'd certainly caution ignoring a recall campaign. So are we worried? Of course, I'm a consumer, I'm a motorist, but it's about what is the call to action to support a recall campaign.
I'm sure you've seen this conversation on social media where people are saying that these big brands, the more well-known brands, the reason we're seeing these recalls is because they are allegedly cutting costs. They're trying to make the cars cheaper. They're trying to get the cars out faster because of the Chinese competition. I'm not sure if there's anything that is behind that.
With 3 decades of experience, Gareth, you know, I've never seen competition in the automotive industry as it is now. And certainly the Chinese coming into South Africa, it's a massive influx. And competition. Competition is rife. Everybody wants to compete. Everybody wants to innovate. Everybody wants to get first mover advantage. But in a sense, in a case like this, I mentioned earlier, you know, recalls are not unique to any particular brand. And those minimum standards that we adhere to says the vehicle meets the minimum standard of quality to be on the road. When a recall campaign happens, there's been a driving of the vehicle over a period of time, and a pattern has been identified. The data says over this period, you've probably driven millions of kilometers, hundreds and thousands of cars. Therefore, the issue is big enough to go out into the market and announce a recall campaign. So is there competition? Yes. Is there innovation? Yes. Would I say there's cutting corners from a government perspective, from a regulatory framework perspective? I'm not too sure if I'd be confident to 100% confirm that these OEMs are cutting corners.
How many cars are we talking about here with these recalls? I'm just trying to figure out what it was maybe in 2026, because we're talking tens of thousands of cars of certain manufacturers.
Correct. So far, approximately there and thereabouts, there's been about 17 to 19 recalls year to date.
Campaigns.
Yeah. Recall campaigns. And as a result of that, if one were to put a number to it, we sell in South Africa approximately 40 to 45,000 vehicles a month. So if we were to put a number to that, I'd say close to 40,000. And that's 1 month's vehicle purchases. But obviously, the recall campaigns are over a period of, what do you call it now? 7 months.
7 months.
7 months.
July.
7 months.
What do you say to people, Marcia, who are saying, but these recalls, these issues, like, for example, the fuel line recall that we had recently. We've also had the issues with the airbags over the years as well. There are people who are going to leave comments. I can see it underneath this episode of Making Sense. Why weren't these issues picked up during production and quality testing? But you almost made the point earlier. They only come out after years of service. But what do you tell someone who says, but this should have been picked up at manufacture and quality control?
So before the vehicle moves off the production line, we do have that quality check, or manufacturers have the quality check. And they look at various aspects. You know, you can't test for everything, Gareth. You can't test. So we test for weather, we test for application, we test for terrain, various environments, and each market is unique. So we test for that. But I think in all fairness, a manufacturer can't product solve at that production line. So these patterns come over a period of time. And yes, I think it's a fair question. If I'm a customer or a consumer, of which I am, I would ask that question. But what's important here, Gareth, is those issues when they come up. As a consumer, I'd be more concerned about the fact that when they do come up, there's no transparency or accountability from the OEM versus the silence. So for me, who's driven many vehicles and multiple brands, as a consumer, I'd rather have an OEM that takes accountability, that communicates with me proactively, tells me what the call to action is. And that for me builds trust as opposed to the silence. So consumers are fair to have that expectation. But I think my comment would be, we can't expect 100% foolproof. Safety is critical and crucial. When that vehicle moves off the production line, it moves off the basis that it's good to be sold.
I remember a couple of years ago, I'm going to date myself here, but I feel it was over 10 years, 15 years ago, Toyota over in Japan had a massive recall because they had a 0.0001% chance of brake failure. And they actually recalled the entire, I think it was a Toyota Corolla, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, they actually recalled the entire Toyota Corolla range because of that. And that's actually what you want from an OEM, isn't it?
That's the responsible way to do it. Firstly, you don't hide it. Secondly, you're transparent. Thirdly, you act. And fourthly, you protect the safety of your customers. So for them to have made a massive decision like that, it's the right thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do. And the comment that I wanted to make as well, Gareth, the monitoring of data and vehicles and performance doesn't stop at manufacture. It doesn't stop at point of sale. When your vehicle goes in for a service at a dealership, when your vehicle goes in for repairs, when your vehicle goes in for warranty claims, you as a customer, me as a customer, I'm phoning in with a customer complaint. All that data goes into a hub. So that is why not every fault is a recall. By the time an OEM goes to market and announces a recall, there's been a period, there's been a pattern, there's extensive analytics to the point that says, let's stop, let's advise the customers. But the one thing that I also want to say, and I've seen it, I've worked in dealerships where we have had a recall campaign when I worked for one of the brands, one of the major brands. We've got a sample of the customers, we reach out to them. One, we've got outdated information. They're not updating information. 2, there's no call to action. 3, we even go as far as contacting them telephonically to let them know. And customers don't come in. So I think for me, it's around awareness. It's around, from this podcast, certainly, whoever is watching, is when that does come out, let's not ignore it. Let's take it seriously and act, but let's not panic.
Let's not panic. You mentioned the minimum standards earlier. Should those minimum standards be increased? So should we have a higher level of minimum standards, just to your point earlier?
Gareth, there's multiple views on this one. Some will say South Africa adheres to the minimum standards. Some of the local manufacturers actually manufacture and assemble for international usage. And it means those international markets are accepting our vehicles as they come through. But another thought leader will say to you, it's not enough. Okay? If we look at the airbags regulation at the moment, it says, we can have a minimum of 2, and that passes. Another thought leader will say we should actually have a minimum of 6. So my expectation and what is absolutely prudent to do, and indeed it's a responsibility of the regulator and the government to make sure that they kept abreast with international standards, that they strengthen our position, and whatever that means, we need to adhere to it. So currently as it stands, I would say there's different schools of thought. From where I'm sitting, we do adhere, but can we do more? You can never be too safe, for lack of an example there.
Let's talk brands for a moment, because some of these vehicle recalls, there's been the BMWs, there's been the Fords. I'm not picking on any of these. These are just the ones that come to mind. There are others. So if I haven't mentioned the brand, it's not because I'm excluding them deliberately. But these are highly established brands. For someone who's been in the industry as long as you have, from an optics perspective, from a marketing perspective, do you think the recall is bad for their brand and their image, or is the recall good because you mentioned earlier they're looking out for the customer? If you were sitting as one of those OEMs, how would you interpret that messaging? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for their brand?
Gareth, it's both. Okay? So both in the sense that no manufacturer wants to go out to a market and advise their consumers or motorists that there's a recall campaign.
It's a big decision. Hey?
So it's a big decision. And I've worked in environments where we've had to make those decisions. But what is prime and optimal enough in our heads when we go out to market? It's the consumer. So I don't want to use the word bad. It's a risk to go out, but I would rather, like I mentioned earlier, manage a reputational risk on positive notes than a reputational risk of absolute silence. And from a consumer perspective, it's a good thing. It's a good thing in the sense that, one, you know that if your vehicle is impacted, there's a call to action, there's a remedy for it, and there's accountability. So the knife cuts both ways. Yeah. Also, from where I'm sitting with the example that I gave you earlier, as a consumer, myself as Marcia, I want an OEM to put up the red flag, to own, to be transparent, and then to hold my hand in the process of managing and remedying the situation. The other thing that I wanted to mention, because, we say so much, there's a lot more coming through, our OEMs rushing to go into market. Vehicles have come with a lot of complexity now, Gareth. That's the reality.
They drive themselves just about.
Three decades ago, it was all mechanical. Now, the things that we ask these vehicles to do, you've got autonomous braking, emergency braking, lane side assist, pedestrian alert, front, back objects. It's a lot. So that on its own brings complexity. Yes, it's innovative, it's efficient, it's the sign of the times, but we also need to appreciate the level of what goes into that vehicle in terms of what the market demands. After all, we as customers, we say we want that technology. So now it's being produced and we have to deal with some recall.
It's like any computer, but that's basically what they are. It's like any computer. It's going to, I don't want to use the word crash because we're talking about motoring in this case, but it can go wrong. And I want to talk about the Chinese cars in a moment. But someone watching this now, they're perhaps looking at buying a new vehicle, perhaps even a second-hand vehicle. With all the brands that have had their recalls, it must be a difficult decision for a consumer at this point to go, let me go for this brand because they're trustworthy, because in 3-4 years' time, there might be a recall. I can imagine there might be a bit of hesitancy right now to spend money on a brand new vehicle, even a well-known OEM, because again, this maybe is being blown out of proportion, these recalls, but I can imagine there might be a bit of a trust deficit building for someone who wants to buy a new car potentially.
So currently, Gareth, in the environment that we operate in, as South Africans in the last few years, we've really, really felt the economic crunch. So the default, as we've seen in the last couple of years, where the Chinese brands have literally moved from a 12% to almost 30% market share, we're very price sensitive. And these vehicles come with state-of-the-art technology. So if I'm out in the market and I want to buy a vehicle, and once again, I think for me, this podcast is great, Gareth, because it gives information. Sometimes the information is out there, but to repeat the information for us as customers to hear it is really good. Price is absolutely a determinant. But secondly, safety features. What is the safety ratings of this vehicle that I'm buying? when was this vehicle launched? What is the after-sales support looking like? And that's from a brand new vehicle perspective. So when you look at all of that, you holistically make an informed decision. And price, I've bought vehicles, it's very exciting, it's an emotional purchase, but we now need to kick in some rationality into this process. From a used vehicle perspective, there's a lot more data there.
Yeah.
Has this brand specifically that you're looking to buy, vehicle make and model, has it had recall campaigns?
I imagine that's what people are Googling these days as well. Yeah.
But people don't do it, Gareth.
Yeah.
Especially recall. We'll check the service history. We'll check if the vehicle's been in an accident. We might even check how many owners or previous owners have had this vehicle if it's a pre-owned vehicle. But we hardly ever check for recalls. We've got customers who will check for it, but will take it a step further, who'll say, okay, this vehicle model hasn't been impacted by recalls, but let me look at the brand as a whole.
Yes.
And then they look at the whole manufacturer and they say, okay, geez, not this vehicle, but a hell of a lot more in other vehicle derivatives. Or this vehicle is fine. That research is so important, and that's the information I want to impart with our viewers today.
Yeah, don't just look for the features. Does it have a sunroof? Does it have park distance control? Most of them have it these days. Go and dig a little bit deeper. I want to stay with the Chinese cars for now, just to remind viewers what I'm talking about here. We did an interview with the AA couple of weeks ago now, a couple of months ago perhaps, where they came out, they were warning on the Chinese vehicles, they were warning that entry-level Chinese vehicles sold here in South Africa, there's concerns about downgraded safety equipment, lower structural metal strength, and fewer airbags compared, the same vehicles, to what you would buy over in Europe and America, for example. Is there a concern of that to your mind?
So I absolutely read the article and I actually watched the interview. I think, Gareth, any organization has got the right to take a position on safety. And this is AA's position on what they have observed and experienced and the facts that they've got and the data that they've got. So that would be my position on it. For me, like I said before, safety and innovation can coexist. So the more safer the vehicles are, the more safer vehicles are for us as consumers and motorists on the road, the better it is. That regulatory framework that I was talking about in that same interview, it was quoted there that we are leaps and bounds behind the curve when it comes to regulation. And I think markets like Australia and New Zealand were mentioned. It's a view, and they've got their own measuring tools. So for me, to answer that question, frankly, is to say safety is key. And my expectation, the regulators, they need to strengthen their position when opportunities present themselves, because the more safer the vehicles are, the better we feel as and protected as consumers.
I want to just change track slightly, still with the Chinese cars, those imports. Why are they so cheap? Just want to get your view on it, like compared to, for example, the well-known OEMs, because I know this is something we've discussed on ENCA before. We've spoken about this. Why are they, how can they, I think is what I'm rather clumsily asking, is how can they produce a car at that price range when you compare the same spec to a well-known, I'm deliberately not mentioning other brands, a well-known established South African brand? How are they doing that? So
the view is that there's government subsidy from China. And that's how they managed to do it. So if it is a highly subsidized manufacturing and export process, that's how they get the competitive advantage. The interesting part, though, is, and this is where one would need to see how the cherry rollout of local manufacturing is going to take place, because they've just brought out the Nissan Roslyn plant. That would be very interesting to see, because the question that we've got is, of all the products that they're going to be locally manufacturing, we want to see that price point.
As a closing tradition on the podcast, what I always like to do is ask our guests one question. What have I not asked you that I should have asked you? Or what is a final thought on the topic of the vehicle recalls that you want to bring up or that you would like to leave with everyone as we land the plane?
I think it's important, Gareth. One, when vehicles move off the production line and they're either transported to a dealership or imported into the country, they have gone through a quality check which meets the minimum standards. Can we do better on those standards as South Africa and our regulation? We have to. Continuous improvement is part of the process. That is my minimum expectation from government and regulation. Two, safety is not just single-pronged. We've got government, we've got the regulators, we've got manufacturers, we've got the dealers, we've got ourselves as consumers. So there's a shared responsibility that needs to take place here, and continuous improvement is the key. And where I support the AA, we have to continue engaging. We have to push ourselves to improve in certain areas around vehicle safety. And lastly, as a customer, as a consumer, recall campaigns is not about panic. It's about fixing an issue that has been identified, where an OEM is saying we need to protect you and put safety. We could not have picked it up on the quality check, but we've certainly picked it up now. So please, the call to action, contact your nearest dealership, make sure that your details are updated, and make sure that you contact them and you go and you see the dealership.
Can't let you go without talking about something very close to your heart. The girl child, woman in the motoring industry. I know that you're obviously, I hate to use the cliche trailblazer, but in this case with you it is. Tell me about the work you're doing there, getting more girls, more women into, well, the motoring industry in general. How do you do it? What do you do?
Gareth, when I joined the automotive industry in 1997, I looked left, right, top, bottom, and I couldn't see any women. The ones that were there were junior managers. The rest were blue-collar ladies. So that's what motivated me. I made sure and I positioned myself to say I'm going to be a necessary disruptor in this automotive industry. If I'm going to the top, I'm not going on my own. I'm taking women with me. And since then, I've created opportunities where I mentor, I coach. Some of the ladies have gone from grassroots to senior executive levels. From a foundation perspective, what we do. The Automotive Industry Master Plan 2035 talks around transformation in the industry. And we've got these targets. Got targets from junior management, entry level, right up to senior management. I'm saying the women that are in the system already, the automotive industry must retain and make sure there's upward mobility for them. Where we have a challenge is the feeder pipeline. What does the foundation do? We go to schools, high schools, grades 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We start talking to them and exposing them to the automotive industry. I fell into the industry. It was by accident, not by choice. These young ladies need to go into the industry understanding what the industry is about and by choice. So we get them vacation work, we take them on plant tours, we take them on dealership tours, and we make them understand it's not just about vehicle sales. There's a full spectrum: rental, fleet, rail, buses. So that's what we do. And our intention is to help the automotive industry and partner to get a feeder pipeline, get these people in, these young ladies in, make it a choice, make automotive attractive again for these young ladies. So, and that's the work that we do, simply put.
Where do we find the foundation and where can people follow you for the work you do?
Oh, thank you. So my name is Marcia Mayaba. On all my handles, Instagram and Facebook, Marcia Mayaba. LinkedIn, Marcia Nokolo Veronica Mayaba. And you've got our foundation. We've got our page, www.marciamayabafoundation.co.za. Email, marciam@mmayabafoundation.co.za.
See, you've got no excuse not to get hold of Marcia, one of the leading voices in the automotive industry and certainly the shining light when it comes to women in the automotive industry as well. It's been wonderful to have you on the podcast. We were talking, of course, about the foundation that she's involved in, but more importantly, for those who are worried, yes, there are a staggering number of recalls for vehicles in South Africa, not just this year, we mentioned that, but the past 5 years. But as you can hear, it is actually a good thing when these manufacturers do put out these recall campaigns. Hopefully that has made sense for you for this week. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.